Good afternoon, Ricardo Lucas. We're here this afternoon to have the conversation about our friend, Charles Rochester Gatson, and talk about the legacy that he had here in Kansas City on the development industry. I'm here with my friend, the esteemed guest, Mr. Ken Bacchus. Good afternoon, my brother.
Always good to see you, man. Always good to see you.
Yes, sir, always. We have a chance to have a conversation about someone that both you and I find dear, Mr. Gatson. Your thoughts?
Man, you could start almost anywhere with Chuck, but I don't think anybody who generally, if you didn't know him, it's a huge loss because you should have had a chance to know him. Chuck would tell you, those of us who know and love him know that he grew up in the 59th and Swope Parkway corridor. He has many stories about living there in that area in the Swope Parkway Edgewood neighborhood. But I think more than anything else is he had an unusual knack about him early on. When you hear about his brothers and sisters and his mom even tell us the stories about he was an avid reader, as you well know, and he worked at was it Milgram's at 39th and Prospect, and he would literally read a book a night almost, because the books were just sitting there ready to be read, and he would just read them.
Yeah.
I don't care what it was, mysteries, whatever it was, avid reader. And so a reader will always know something because they have had an opportunity to visit another life, another world, and another part of wherever through reading. So Chuck loved to read. He also loved to cook. And I mean, those were the things that he really loved doing. When he and I officed together for a long time, and every day almost, he and Alice would talk. He said, well, what are we going to cook tonight? And and I don't know what she said at the end, but she's generally just whatever, because he did the cooking for the most part. And he said, well, I had this for lunch, and why don't we have this for dinner? Or, we're going to cook a lamb chop or something like that. The dude could cook, man. Yeah. So he and I used to do these summertimes, eating places, either at my cousin's house, Anita's house, or at his house, or at our house. And we would just bring the game on. Yeah. But he loved to cook, avid reader, and he loved his community.
He loved his community. That's correct. You had a unique perspective from the 5th District, being a former 5th District City Council person. You had a different perspective, having to interface with a CDC, Community Development Corporation, and having to intercede with Chuck from a different perspective. How did you find his business acumen in development from your side of the city?
Well, when you're right, I went on the city council in '91, and then I had known Frank Ellis for quite some time, and I knew that he started Swope Parkway Health Center in the basement of Metropolitan Baptist Church with Reverend Hartsfield. He and Don Maxwell started the CDC in the basement as well. So that was the first place, and Frank wanted to do something in the community. He wanted to expand the center from where it was there at 4900 Swope Parkway, and he wanted to make a difference in the community, but he knew that it was beyond the medical condition or the physical health of the community. It was beyond the human health of the community. It was beyond infant mortality rates. It was beyond high blood pressure and all these elements that we have, hepatitis and all those things. But also the community had a physical blight problem.
Absolutely.
The way people actually laid their head down was a problem. The fact that there were insignificant places for babies to be educated, child development centers, jobs. I mean, the basics. People were going to bed hungry. So Frank knew all this, and Frank came to me and said, look, I want to start a CDC out here to help us rework this community. What do you think? I said, I think it's wonderful. And he said, well, will you help at City Hall to help advance that idea? And I told him I most definitely would. I had gone to Congressman Cleaver, who was the mayor at the time. He said, Ken, I'm so happy to hear that because, you know, my wife worked out all these years, and being an elected official, there were conflicts that you had to be careful about because people are afraid that if you're going to help someone, your wife worked there and it becomes a problem. Well, I didn't have any of those issues. I just wanted more money for the organization. And Mayor Cleaver, man, everything I wanted to do, he said absolutely. And so Frank wanted to start a CDC, and he said, well, what kind of person should I hire to manage this place? What is the background of the person? I told him he needed someone who understood where all of the money was, how it operated, how the soft money operated, how to. I said, if you get the soft money, you can get the money. You can borrow dollars or leverage public foundations, and otherwise, if you could get the attention of City Hall and get that work. So I told him that he needed someone who had an inside track, an idea about how government work, how the grants work, someone who could write and administer and make this work. So we threw a lot of names out there, here, there, and there, and generally the person in the end that we were looking for someone was someone who already either worked for one of the nonprofit organizations that interacted with the city, or someone who worked for the city in those departments. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think. I think Chuck at the time had ran the Builders Association out there where Swope Park Rehab Center is now. It used to be an old grocery store or something, but it was horrible, as you recall. And I believe, but anyway, a few names came out, and so I told him, I said, why don't you go talk to Chuck Gatson? I said, I think he'll know what to do, and he has the blessings, I think, of a lot of people. He can get folks to come with him in terms of making something happen, and Frank did. He brought Chuck on, and as I would say, the rest is history because you have to hold on. And Chuck became a dear friend of mine because he knew what he was doing, and so I trusted him. And being an elected official, very difficult to trust someone because they could easily do something that go away that would make it really bad for you, but bad for the city, and just cause all kind of problems.
Absolutely. And I believe Chuck understood that. Also, you mentioned Mr. Ellis. You know, they were a heck of a team.
Oh, absolutely.
When they started out, they were trailblazers.
Oh my goodness.
For what they wanted to get accomplished, and unfortunately, in the end, they parted. But when they were a team, a tandem, they were formidable. I always said that Swope was the largest CDC in a 4-state region.
Yes.
When we went to, I think Chuck took us to L.A., went to San Francisco and looked at some different CDCs. None of them people could touch us.
Right.
None of them. And it was because of the reason that you said. He knew how to work within the system. He knew how to work with the soft dollars.
Right.
And what I didn't understand when I went to work with Swope was the components that he brought to the table. Right. But after I learned a little more, he really didn't have any choices when you looked at, the opportunities that were offered us, the players that were involved.
Right.
He really didn't have a whole lot of choices about who he could bring and who he could interface with to move the process. And so people push back sometimes talking about, his minority participation. But, when I look back, I see that, we don't have a whole lot of people.
Right.
In that industry.
Yeah.
We particularly don't have a whole lot of dollars in that industry. And, Chuck was phenomenal with the way he was able to move dollars and move projects. Right. And move initiatives, particularly.
Man, look, when Chuck, if you see a table that because development is nothing but a very real game in many ways. People who are in the business know what that means. It's just a game but it's real.
Yeah.
And so if Chuck couldn't make something work one way or the other, he just make the table bigger. He said, okay, well, we're going to do this bigger. He just expand the size of the table. And expanding the size of the table meant he brought more people on who could make it work. He increased the size of the pot to allow for other people an opportunity to invest. When Kansas City got too small, he went national. You can name the foundation, the ones that he went to. and he was a big early component of LIS, Local Initiative Support Corporation, the John and something Foundation that Keith Brown was involved in a lot. A lot of that money came through Kansas City, and it's sort of weird that some of our major local foundations just didn't necessarily play on the table of development, particularly on the east side, and that's sad. But in the end, the duo of Frank Alice and Chuck Gatson, although they had different views of how certain things work, but when they work together, oh my goodness, you better get out of the way.
Yeah.
Because they made it happen.
Yeah, and I used to watch the dynamics from the boardroom, and it was really something to see. But one thing I was really proud of Chuck for is that he always maintained his community component of his organization.
Right.
He had his development side, but he also had a side that interfaced with the community and heard the community,
right,
and stayed in touch and contact with the community from the street level conversation. What was making people hurt? What was putting people in pain? How could we help them come out of the poverty? How could we afford them with affordable housing, and employment opportunities? He was one of the major CDCs. We had a job fair at his organization. We had over 800 people. They said they couldn't find jobs for people in the industry. Chuck helped 236 people.
Oh yeah,
get jobs.
And many people came through there, and I adopted some of his systems in my daily life. And one of those is that if you have something that you're working on, I don't care what it is, there's always a way to do it. And there's always a way that you want to do it. But if you're going to be successful, you better have 3 or 4 different ways to do it. Because invariably what would happen is something would happen where the way you wanted to deal or work it just didn't happen. And so it's called options. Have more than one option in your bag in development world. You have to, because believe me, if it can happen, it will. But Chuck believed in having many options to make things happen in our community. He was huge in terms of his work with people. You can go see the average guy down the street, Chase, oh yeah, man, he gave me $50 one time. Well, he just did because that's who he was. Yeah. He loved his good drink now on Thursday afternoons or something like that. But we had a lot of fun. I remember when you came on, Chuck said, he said, man, people may not want to hire. I see something different in Ricardo that other people may not see. Yeah. And he said, I told him if he will come to work for me, he have to get all his credentials. So he sent you to every place around the country, studying to be certified in what was it?
Housing Development Finance Professional, National Development Council.
Yeah, and so and you look back at those times and said, man, this guy believed in me.
Oh yeah, I'll never forget it, and I hope we won't. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Here, Cascade Media. What's up, Kansas City? KC's the place. Cascade Media is the town.
Anything that you would like to tell our audience? Well, it was a pleasure having you on the show. In closing, people, as I always say, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.